Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I am Stephen Conway, and with me once again is Jeremy Finestone. After a week off, Jeremy, we're very, very glad to have you back. And we are ready to talk about, we have a couple of tag team tournaments going and a couple other events that they have been teasing throughout this tag team tournament tour. And after your week off, how are you feeling about things? It's very, very early in these tournaments. We're just seeing how things are beginning to play out. The world is not on fire at this point. We're not sitting here just biting our nails watching every match. This is not a G1 tournament, but there has been some good wrestling. It's been some really bad wrestling. It's been a mixed bag. How you feeling so far after a week?
I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. I'm not going to lie. I feel like I'm sifting for some diamonds in the rough right here. And
it's a lot of shows.
That's fine. It's like I know that in the rest of the wrestling world, things are going to kind of die down over the next couple months. So at least the content for New Japan is actually like here. The Survivor Series and WWE is kind of down. There's nothing until Royal Rumble.
True.
AEW doesn't have anything until March. So this is the New Japan time to shine. And they've nailed down a lot of the other events going on. So now it's time to get these multi-man matches. But as you're watching these tournaments, it becomes abundantly clear that there are only a few names that are going to be considered for Wrestle Kingdom spots. Right. And the rest of them are simply there as supporting cast for these few tag teams.
I think that's fair, and I think we're going to go into the standings, really bear that out, especially, I believe, in the junior tag league. There's very much a haves and have-nots situation going in there. But overall, like I said, we've seen some good wrestling. So what we're going to do here, now there's too many matches to do what we did during G1 where we go over each one. And there's just...
And they're not that good. Like, I love...
They aren't.
But they're not... Nobody wants to hear us talk about matches that aren't good, trying to find something good to say about them. That's not
exactly. Yeah, that's not the show. And we have to be honest. And this isn't the best tour they've done this year. In fact, it might be the worst. It's just that so far there just isn't a whole lot going on that's particularly interesting yet. Now, there are a lot of major clashes between really good teams coming up. So I think the tournament will pick up as it goes on. But it's been a slow start. Now, with that in mind, we also have a couple other things we're going to go over. What we're going to do is we're going to do an overview of the first week, and then we're going to choose the best matches that we felt we saw this past week from each tournament. And so if you don't have time to go through all this, and we don't blame you, we'll at least give you a little guideline as to some matches that maybe are worth your time, rather than perhaps watching every single one.
Yeah, no, I think we picked out about 9-10 matches total that are out of at least 50 matches.
I think officially a metric ton. I think is what I saw.
There were a swear word ton amount of matches, right. And that described some of the quality. But we're going to go into all of it. There's a couple of bullet points that have been happening through this show that I kind of took notes down and thought maybe we'll talk about that. But we're here to talk about the good things in New Japan, and we picked out the matches that if you want to watch them, these are the ones that you should see.
Yeah. And before we move on to the tag team tournament now, Scott Edwards was a wonderful guest last week here on the show to talk about historic crossover. And I know, Jeremy, that you have a couple thoughts on especially the last two title matches. Again, in the interest of keeping things moving, you can go back and watch last week if you want the full recap of the full show. But I think everybody, including especially me, very interested in hearing your thoughts on Kairi and Mayu Iwatani, and the new IWGP champion, women's champion, and, of course, the U.S. title match that we saw. Your very brief historic crossover thoughts before we move forward, if you would, please.
So Kairi and Mayu, it was a very special match. And for the longest time, we were underlining that the quality of the first match to define the title will define the title. And it felt like they gave everything that they had. And apparently that they did, finding out afterwards that Kairi was working on a high ankle sprain that will typically sideline NFL players for 4 to 8 weeks. And she went out there and she just kind of gutted it out and went 20 minutes and won the title with
after a 30-minute draw the night before.
After a 30-minute draw the night before, ain't no thing. So Yes, apparently it is now free on New Japan, so
Mhm.
you can go watch it at your convenience, and I highly, highly recommend that you do so. Then there was the Ospreay match, the Will Ospreay match against Shota Umino, and I felt like we were pretty on point with it's not going to be a Shota Umino win, but he's not going to get stopped by his father in a red shoes the way they did. There was a middle ground there. And afterwards, we had the return of someone that we have not seen in a long, long time. And it wasn't just Kenny Omega. It was the New Japan version of Kenny Omega.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, I gotta stretch real quick.
Here we go. Oh, good. Here we go.
Main event Kenny just kind of gets me to kind of loosen it up a little bit. He had a tremendous promo. In all honesty, like there was something very special about that promo, and there was a lot of vibes of Jericho Painmaker back when he showed up way back against Naito, did the Omega program, all that stuff. This is going to be something special.
I was going to say it's going to be a hell of a lot better than a Chris Jericho match too.
No, it's gonna be great.
We're still pretending Chris is good, right? We're still doing that in AEW. We're still pretending Chris is good. Okay, just checking.
Hey, for a 52-year-old man, he has exceeded my expectation.
All right, well, man, that's fair. I guess that's fair. Anyway, but Kenny, this is the match we would hope for, and I did. I mean, we're playing a little bit of comedy here that Jeremy's been saying, but this is the match we hope for, both of us. I was just more skeptical than you were that the politics could be worked out, and I love that this match is happening. I'm over the moon that this match is happening. You always had more confidence in it than I did, because I just thought with the January 4th show in Washington, the Elite just coming back, I just didn't know if Tony Khan was going to let them go and do this. I just wasn't sure. And I just thought, well, the Moxley thing makes a little bit of sense with Shota and all that. And I talked myself into that. And I just thought, if the politics doesn't work out, there is something good in the wings. If you can get Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay in the ring, for the love of God, get it in the ring, because it's going to be fantastic. And the part that hits me on this, Jeremy, I'm going to let you go here in a second and let you expound upon this, but talk about Kazuchika Okada and Jay White for the IWGP World Heavyweight title in the main event. These are two of the best big match wrestlers in the world, Okada and White. Can you apply any more pressure? I mean, how special is their match going to be? Because they do not want to be the second best match at Wrestle Kingdom.
No, man.
Think of what we're going to get in these last two. All right, go ahead, please.
It's going to be balls to the wall, and it's going to be one of those things that that the competitive edge on everybody there is going to be sharpened to the finest point. So the thing about those two matches is they're going to be diametrically different from each other. There's going to be a lot more fast-paced, high intensity speed moves. And I believe in the Ospreay Omega match. And I think that the psychology will take a lot more point. That's not to say that both things won't happen in both matches, but if you're going to consider what the strength of one match is going to be versus the strength of what the other match is going to be, trying to tell stories competitively and trying to compel the audience that they're the better match, it is going to be a very special night. Do you think that both matches could be 5 stars? I certainly do. I think you could have. Do you think that one of them could be a dud? It's possible. It is entirely possible.
I don't see how. I just don't see how.
Well, let me put it to you this way. If it's anything less than mind-blowing, I could see people making an argument of it being a disappointment.
Yeah, but
there is so much
not going to happen.
No, there are naysayers everywhere on the internet. I'm not naysaying, but it's one of those. The one thing I don't want on Thursday morning or whatever it is this narrative that somehow Wrestle Kingdom didn't deliver. There's going to be so much on there, and it's there's no way that this is going to be a disappointment to me.
Don't feed the trolls. Just don't feed the trolls. Not worth it.
What do you think Wrestle Kingdom on the 21st is going to be?
Wrestle Kingdom on the 21st?
There's a second Wrestle Kingdom this year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know what that's going to end up being. What do you got?
Be like a Forbidden Door thing?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be, but I feel like we should know more in the week or two. If
Sure.
they're going to do something like that, they need to get started on it there. So
I think after winter is coming in AEW and the show's on the 14th, I think we'll have a lot more clarity as to what is going on with the 21st, because the last time they did that, it ended up being the Noah show.
yeah.
So my immediate thought was a crossover show with some other promotion. And we had always discussed that January would be an ideal time for AEW to go over to Japan. So if it happens, great. If it doesn't, there will be a time where it does.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
It's going to be interesting. So we have all that to look forward to, and we're definitely very much looking forward to that. We also have tag team tournaments going on. So let's get to this. So we're going to start, I believe, what are we going to start with today? Let's start with the heavyweights, Jeremy, because this is one that's been a tale of three teams for the most part as it goes thus far. And I'll tell you one team that it's not hasn't been about is the House of Torture, Jeremy. We're going to do just a little overview, then we'll get to the matches. The House of Torture in both tournaments so far, I find this interesting, has been booked as a unit of complete buffoons. They can't get anything done. They interfere in each other's matches, yet still lose. They end up looking foolish. They clobber each other. It's an interesting thing from Gedo because Gedo is the booker of New Japan, and he's a member of Bullet Club right there. And there you go. See, it's a little puzzling because this is a group that they pushed fairly hard at the beginning. And most of the time, when Gedo really tears a team down to its foundation, it's because he's about to build them back up again. Where do you see this one heading? Because right now, these guys look like they couldn't run a lemonade stand, let alone win a wrestling match.
Okay. So the minute I threw my hands up in the air in complete frustration was when Ace Austin and Chris Bay held off 4 members of House of Torture in order to defeat them. They had no help whatsoever.
Right.
The junior heavyweight in Bullet Club dispatched all of House of Torture. And it wasn't the only time in 3 nights that happened.
Yeah, Bad Luck Fale and Chase Owens had the same situation. The Bullet Club versus House of Torture matches. Entire House of Torture tries to interfere. They end up looking like morons and they get beat. And it's fascinating to me.
And then United Empire, the same thing.
Yeah.
So Aussie Open came out and dispatched the rest of House of Torture in the match that I believe Akira and TJP had with Show and TikTogo. And then and it was just one of those House of Geeks, man. I'm not sure if they're just the bloom is off the rose or if this is, like you said, a teardown. The best thing that can happen for them is to get them out of Bullet Club, number one.
You think?
Yeah, this is like an NWO Red kind of thing. It's just not working anymore. And when Evil got this, you're going to be the head of the stable, this is going to be your show. I don't know if this is what he had in mind.
Yeah,
but we've seen the argument that this is a very westernized stable to attract a different audience, but I don't see what this attracts to anybody. When I think Show came out for his match against Austin and Chris Bay, he was wearing his jacket, the lights were on bright, it was a completely white gym. I kind of felt for him because it just he just looked like he wanted to be anywhere but there, doing anything but what he was about to do. And it's I just didn't feel the passion from it. So I don't know what's going on there. It doesn't seem like anyone's really enjoying the gimmick. If the gimmick went away anytime soon or got retooled, it would not surprise me at all. But I think they're all fundamentally eliminated. Maybe Evil and Takahashi are still in it, but they're not the threats in these tournaments.
Neither team from the House of Torture has scored points yet.
Yes.
Period. Anything. So, yeah, it seems very strange. Now, the other thing we wanted to mention here was we were talking the heavyweights, right? And then what we decided to do.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So there's a team in there that is close to a Young Lion team. I think they're wrestling very well. It's a team of Alex Coughlin and Gabriel Kidd. Yes. But you have a bone to pick, Jeremy, with Gabriel Kidd so far. Now, in-ring performance, we're down, right? They're fine. They've been wrestling well. Now, again, they're close to a Young Lion. They're not a Young Lion team. They have they're an LA dojo team, but they're being kind of booked like a Young Lion team. They're not winning, and so. We have that in mind, but what are your thoughts on Gabriel Kidd's presentation so far?
So this is absolutely no critique on his wrestling ability or his pedigree or anything like that. Let's get that out of the way. There is something to be said about his presentation of how he's acting in the ring that, as someone who's watched a lot of wrestling, has given me immediate tells that he is going to be losing. And that is the continual mocking of veteran wrestlers, of their gimmicks, so on and so forth. That very rarely ends well. And that is in a lot of ways a jobber gimmick. And Gabriel Kidd is not a jobber. I've seen him struggle, but I've also seen him succeed. And the talent is there, and the pedigree is there, and the mindset is there. I need for him to not overact his way throughout a ring and be confident in what he is doing, because he does not need to be doing what he is doing and taking down the rest of the match with his over pantomiming of gestures that it's just not there. So Court Connors and him. I don't know if this is, or Alex Coughlin. I'm sorry, not Clark Connors. Alex Coughlin and him haven't done great in this tournament. And this is generally just a feet in the door experience, all this stuff. So I don't know if he's just being obnoxious or if this is the direction of him going heel. That's really where I'm going with this. Is I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt that this is him healing it up, and this is a heel face team, something like that down the line to give them a direction after this tournament. But it's not doing it for me right now. So what do you think?
Well, I think their matches are good, like you said. The gimmick, it bothers me a little bit less than it does you, but the whole point here is that perhaps Alex Coughlin is the powerhouse, and he's shredded. This guy looks incredible, and then he's hitting all these power moves in these matches that you wouldn't expect him to hit, because he's not huge. It's just that he's really pound for pound strong. So they're showing that off a little bit, and then perhaps Gabriel Kidd is kind of coming off as the hothead. And perhaps that, because of Coughlin's working style, that's what Gabe Kidd thought he could bring to the team that wasn't there. Or, like you said, they have something in mind where it's going to be a matter of, well, at the end of this, that Kidd is going to go against. Maybe he's going to get frustrated with the losses or something like that. They may be setting something up. And they did that. I mean, Ace Austin appeared for Bullet Club suddenly at the end of Super Juniors. They've done things like that before. Kenta after the G1 turning out to be a Bullet Club guy. So could be where they're going with that. Absolutely. So we'll see. It might also just be a matter of, well, what can I do that he's not doing? And there. But the wrestling has been good. So we'll see how that turns out. So with that, we're going to look at this. We're going to look at this tag team tournament, and let me go ahead and I'm going to run the standings across the bottom right there. You can look at them at your leisure. But there were what we're seeing here is, again, it's a matter of haves and have-nots. There are three teams that seem to be really in contention here, and the one that is undefeated thus far is Aussie Open. They're getting a big push, and they've won all three of their matches so far. Last year's champions, Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi, the Bishamon team, and they're kind of emphasizing the team name more than they have in the past, and are really trying to make them a unit. They're still looking good, looking strong, and maybe having the best matches of the whole tournament as a team. And then you have Tetsuya Naito and Sanada. Now, they have 4 points. There are other teams that have 4 points, but Naito and Sanada feel a little more involved than the others, I would say. And so Minoru Suzuki and Lance Archer also have 4. Great O'Khan and Aaron Henare also have 4. And then you start to get toward the have-nots, and we mentioned Evil and Yujiro Takahashi scoreless, Coughlin and Kidd scoreless. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Toru Yano, who are doing some sort of manga gimmick where they're dressing.
Bebop High School from the 80s.
Okay. Well, all
It
right,
gives them something to do. Clearly, they were not figuring big on the plans on this tournament.
Yeah, And then you have Fale and Chase Owens there, and then you have Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols, which is a team I think is going to finish. I think most of those teams that aren't named Coughlin and Kidd are going to finish kind of in the middle of the pack, so to speak. They'll probably, once the things are decided and they're mathematically eliminated, they'll probably get a couple of wins just so they don't totally look bad. But it feels a little bit like an Aussie Open, Goto, Yoshihashi, Naito, Sonata. I think this is all going to come down to the last day like it usually does. And so with that, we wanted to go over some of the matches from this tournament that have been good so far, and there hasn't been a ton to talk about here, but we found a few, and we're going to point them out to you. And I have two of them from Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto. The first that I wanted to mention is from the 27th. It's just a few days ago, against Naito and Sonata. And I thought that this one was a real strong one. It ended the night, and it gave let's see if I can, there we go. And I just thought this was a really strong one between two very good teams that know each other very well. And I felt like they put on a pretty solid main event match here on the 27th here. What were your thoughts on that?
So this felt like it made the entire rest of the tournament feel like it was a New Japan tournament, in which these were the close to main event veterans vying for the tournament championship. And when you have them in there, you're reminded of just like the caliber of this tournament, how important it is, what the goal of the end game is. And then they go out there and they just wrestle a solid stand up, just great match. And, I think you and I were both about a year ago, we weren't doing this show, but we had the same opinion of Goto and Yoshihashi, which is they're good, but they're not setting anyone's world on fire. And you can't say that anymore. Like, these guys have just 2022 was their year to just get back on the horse and just say, hey, don't put us out to pasture. We have a lot to offer this company. There's almost an Ishii vibe of a resurgence in popularity, and in the Western, the US and stuff, I don't think they're going to get that kind of reaction. I don't think people are paying attention to it. But if you're tuned into New Japan, you know that these two are doing good work. And yeah.
Solid stuff. What was one that you enjoyed?
So I had to throw out the Aussie Open versus Suzuki and Archer match. Now, it didn't really feel like it was going to be a special match. This wasn't like anything that I circled the calendar and said, "Oh, hey, whatever." This is what I'm going to make a point for. But they got in the ring and these guys are going hard. And Mark Davis and Suzuki are just slapping the piss out of each other.
You did.
The Coriolis attempt on Lance Archer, they almost pulled it off. And then they got their finish on Minoru Suzuki, and Aussie Open beat these two. That's rad. That shows how much confidence. This is Minoru Suzuki and Lance Archer. And yes, I know we all feel like Lance Archer is not the big deal that he is, but a lot of promotions put him in a place of prominence so that when somebody beats him, it's a big deal. And
they sure did. And it's been a sign all along of what they think of Aussie Open. They've kind of front loaded them with some big wins. And we're about to get to one next, is they've really put them against some of the top teams and guys that don't normally do a whole ton of jobs. And they've put them on against them early and had Aussie Open beat them. And it's a clear signal that they take this team very, very seriously going forward as a heavyweight tag team, as they should. Yes. But as a fan of tag team wrestling, this is very encouraging to me. It makes me feel like, okay, they feel like they're going to be getting and booking Aussie Open a lot in the future, because all they're doing is this entire tournament so far has been mostly about raising these guys' stock. And, it could turn around toward the end. It could be a thing. Because remember, like in the G1, John Moxley won his first 3 or 4 matches and then went on a bit of a losing streak.
Mm-hmm.
That could happen. Absolutely. But I think these guys are going to be involved all the way to the end, perhaps even win the thing, or at least be in the finals. It would not surprise me. It would surprise me, as a matter of fact, if they weren't involved in the finals against someone, because this seems to be a team that they really want to build.
I think they're going to be in the mix until the final night, but I'm getting a strong Naito Sonata vibe on winning this tournament. So
me too.
I think your instincts are correct that they're going to be looking strong front loaded, and then they're going to lose some frustrating ones and numbers wise perhaps get edged out in the end. And so you and I had a couple overlaps on a couple of these, and I think another one that we both agreed on was another Aussie Open match. Do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, and this was one that I thought was fabulous, and it involves some of the teams we've already been talking about. And we had Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto against Aussie Open, and that one was on, let me get the date, I want to make sure it's correct, the 26th. So there you go. Yoshihashi and Goto going back-to-back in matches that we really enjoyed. And this was another that I really like the pace of this one. It was brisk. It felt like a big match. The whole vibe of it, Goto and Yoshihashi were not, I'm trying to think of how to explain it. They from the very beginning, they were wrestling this match as if it were a very serious one for them. And it was like everybody involved knew that this could be a pivotal match come the final standings. And it had a sense of urgency about it. It had some terrific finishing sequences, and everyone just kind of showed up for this one. It ended with Aussie Open hitting their big move and pinning Yoshihashi clean, and it was a pretty clean win. Goto on the outside. They weren't necessarily holding on to his ankles. They hit their big move, sitting on Yoshihashi's chest there was no doubt about it that it was the 1, 2, 3. Again, part of that clear signal that this is a contender.
Yeah, the trajectory of Aussie Open from the start of this year, when we first started seeing them on strong, to having a major prominence in World Tag League in New Japan. There are very few talents in New Japan that have had the stratospheric rise that they have. Do you think if they don't win the World Tag League that there will be the tag team masthead for United Empire, and that Okan, Hanare, and Cobb may end up doing like a trios title thing?
It could be something like that. I think this is the United Empire heavyweight team. I think they put a couple other people together, but this is the real deal right here. Because really, if you think about it, the other heavyweight tag team is normally Cobb and Okan. And Cobb's not on this tour, so it's Hanare and Okan. And Hanare is just fine. I like Hanare, but with Cobb, he's a singles guy. Okan almost works Okan's a good tag team wrestler, but again, another guy that just kind of does singles feuds a little bit. This feels like this is a tag team unit, and I think that's the whole point that they want to make here, is that United Empire has all bases covered, and one of them is the heavyweight tag team championship contender, and I think that this is where they're going with it for United Empire. Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is their team.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm going to throw in here real quick, our weekly reminder: Gideon Gray's doing great work.
He is. He's going out there and introducing these guys, and it is entertaining, and the guy's doing very, very well. So
hats off to Gideon Gray.
What's another one for you?
Well, I think that was it for mine, because a lot of ours overlap, but I think we have one more that I'm going to give you the floor on.
Okay, yeah, and this was one, and I don't have a ton to say about it. It's from the second night. It was from the 22nd, and this is just Alex Coughlin, Gabriel Kidd, Mikey Nichols, Shane Haste. This reminds me of that, and I don't mean it as an insult, that middle of the card match that makes you go, wow, I'd like to see that one again. And it's not going to be one that factors into the final standings, but these are 4 really talented guys who were very motivated in this match, because it was an early tournament match, to come out and have a good one, and they really did. So definitely worth your time. Like I said, this one isn't going to determine who goes to the finals and who doesn't. But these are 4 really good wrestlers putting on a really good match in front of a cheering crowd at Korakuen, so it had that atmosphere. So again, worth your time as a fan to go and check this one out.
I will definitely say that this might have been the match in which I was like, okay, I just want Kid to lose all his matches now.
See, I'm on board
possible.
with you. I'm more on board with you, but I understand. It's all right. I think he's doing fine.
We
But
can't agree on everything.
They can't agree on everything. That would be a boring show. No, we don't want that. So there you go. There's the heavyweight tournament, and then we have a lot more shows to come up, and we'll see how this thing kind of faces up. Will Aussie Open keep its momentum? Will Naito and Sonata make their rally and their run? We will find out a little bit more about it this week, and then we'll find out if House of Torture can even get themselves together to get some points. Maybe from Coughlin and Kidd. Maybe that's what it'll come from, or Tanahashi Yano or something like that. So, but it's a few and far between for them. So. That will take us through the heavyweight tournament. Now, there's another one going on. We got the junior heavyweight tournament, and I will get that off the screen here because we're going to move on. Now, the junior heavyweight tournament is another case of haves and have-nots. This one a little more stark. The contrast is more stark. They have really divided these teams up. They've also had more shows. They've had more matches than the heavyweights have thus far. And what we're looking at here is teams that are sitting on 8 points, and there's 4 of them that are undefeated in this tournament because they've only been wrestling the other slate. You have Ace Austin and Chris Bay, TJP and Francesco Akira. Well, in fact, they're not undefeated. They have 8 points. There's a loss in there. Alex Zayne and El Lindemann from Noah. That's a team here. They have 8 points. Bushi and Titan, 8 points. Yo and Lio Rush with 8 points. And from there, it drops off kind of steeply. You have Robbie Eagles and Tiger Mask sitting on 4. You have Ryusuke Taguchi and Carl Connors. We're going to get to them. They're sitting on 4 points. Kushida and Kevin Knight, only 2. Mostly, again, this is protecting Kushida. Kevin Knight's the newer guy. He's coming up from NJPW Strong. He's the one that's doing most of the jobs here.
Kevin the Jet. The Jet.
But I'll say this. He's doing the jobs, but he is impressing. He is impressing in his matches because this guy's athleticism is off the charts. And he's hitting a lot of very, very – they're working in those high drop kicks. He's drop kicking people off of very high perches. And each time he gets a little bit of an ooh and an ah.
And he got a makeover.
A little bit, yes. Yeah, that's true too. Kanemaru and Doki, by the way, and Sho and Dick Togo sitting on Zilch. And so that's where we stand with that. Overall, like I said, haves and have-nots. What are your thoughts on this tournament so far, Jeremy? Mine are that the teams with 8 points are indeed the ones, with the exception of Zayne and Lindemann, who I think are going to fall off. And I think Bay and Austin are going to come up a little bit short. I think this is going to come down to the tag team champions, TJP and Francesco Akira from United Empire, Bushi and Titan. And I think they really believe in Yo and Lio Rush. And I think they're going to be in it to the end. Maybe not make the finals, maybe make the finals. But I feel like that's a team that's going to be there all the way through. I think they're starting to believe in these guys a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of cream rising to the top in this tournament, way more than the World Tag League. You can tell that they're booking this very differently from each other, and they're stacking the Super Junior Tag League. They did a number of shows ahead more than the World Tag League.
Yeah,
so they're ahead in a lot of ways, so that the World Tag League is going to take precedence at the tail end of the tournament. So TJP and Akira, they're looking fantastic. I think they only have 1 loss so far.
Yeah.
And Bushi and Titan really seem like the team to beat. I don't have anything. I don't know. Okay, give me a second here.
Okay.
There was a Taco Bell incident. And ever since that happened, I cannot stop thinking. I can't look at Zayne, Lindemann, Clark Connors, and Taguchi. I can't give them credibility right now. So there was a match, and it was those 4. And Taguchi has the pants come down gimmick, and sometimes you get the stink face. Alex Zayne has a Taco Bell gimmick, in which Taco Bell in Japan, he's the only Westerner they follow, or like he's the only person they follow.
You're correct. He's the only Westerner. They only follow 3 people. One of them is Alex Zayne.
Okay, so he's got this Taco Bell thing.
Yeah.
In the middle of this comedy match, a scenario happened where Alex Zayne got stink-faced and proceeded to eat Taguchi's stink face like a taco filling.
I would love to say this got better, but it didn't.
At
one point, also they brought a damn taco out to the ring to distract Alex Zayne because when he is in the presence of a taco, Jeremy, he is unable to focus on wrestling a goddamn match.
I was making dinner.
It was so awful.
I was making dinner, and I didn't want to eat much dinner after that.
What are they doing? It's okay if you're going to do some goofy shit on a house show somewhere on a second match of a Corrigan Hall show. Fine, do that. But in the middle of the tag team tournament, is that when you bring out the stupid taco thing? Like he can't control himself when he's around a taco. This is so bad.
The problem was I was coming around on Alex Zayne. He did commentary one of the first nights.
Yeah.
And the deep voice, the insight, everything about it, I was like, wow, this guy is great. I must have completely had him misunderstood. Like, I got him wrong. Like, I'm going to give him a new shot. And then I saw that match, and I'm just like,
no.
You've got to be kidding me. This is, it was the garbage of garbage, like, indie match shit that, like, I paid $20 to go down to the local rec center to see stuff like that. I don't want that on my New Japan. And I hope that
it didn't work, and the crowd didn't like it either, by the way. The crowd, this was not, it's not like they were rolling in the aisles. They were looking at this seriously. You could almost see that some of the body language was just like, oh, really?
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do right now.
Not ideal. Not ideal. So with that said, I'm really not rooting for Zayne and Lindemann to win this tournament.
They're not going to.
Let's bring it back home. So Austin and Bay, I don't believe are going to win this tournament. They look too good going into it. I think Yo and Lio Rush have a shot to win this tournament, but I think the real story is Lio Rush perhaps not being aligned with Chaos or Yo by the end of this tournament.
Yeah, you have a theory on that.
Yeah, no, it seems like United Empire has a spot open for a single junior heavyweight contender. And after this the match was over between Lio Rush and Yo and TJP and Francisco Akira,
which would have been the right slate to put on. This is why we're glad Jeremy's back.
There was a very curious moment in which TJP shook Lio Rush's hand in a very respectful manner. Yeah. And then Akira wiped his hand on his boot to shake Yo's hand. And then Yo spit on his hand and they did their thing. But it was the Rush TJP thing. It was very quiet. It was not a whole lot of attention to it. But Lio Rush in United Empire does make a certain amount of sense.
It kind of does. It would give them that junior heavyweight singles competitor that they could use. And the other part of that is he doesn't make a whole ton of sense in Hantai or Chaos.
No.
So he doesn't really fit there. So, that would make a little bit of sense. Perhaps they planted a seed. We'll find out soon. So
maybe we have a Master Watto versus Lio Rush feud post Wrestle Kingdom. That'll set the world on fire.
That would be fun. And
it would be.
And Yo has stepped up and been pretty good in this tournament. By the way, he's been strong. And this match here that's up on the screen here, that's the one loss so far, I believe, for TJP and Akira is this one. And this
match right here,
wasn't it?
No, they won that match.
They won that one. Who did they? Okay, sorry, no, I had that backwards. My notes. I gotta go to my notes.
I think it might have been Bushi and
Teton. Yeah, okay, pardon me. So there you have it. But yeah, this was a strong one, and like I said, perhaps planted some seeds right there. But a good match here, and Lio Rush works well with all these guys, and he and Yo have been good so far. It's been nice to see Yo get into a spot where he can shine a little bit. And yes, he did take the loss in this. Yes. Okay. Yo did take the loss in this match. Yo was the one pin, not Lio Rush. They're protecting him, but all around four real good guys. And this was a good match that was on. This was on the 28th. That one was a little bit earlier in the tournament.
21st.
Yeah, the 21st.
This was opening night. This was the main event on the opening night.
There you have it. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So with that one, I also thought there was a Yo and Lio Rush. I had it up earlier. There, I was so excited to talk about this match. I put it up too soon. It was Yo and Lio again. I wanted to mention this one is worth your time here against Ace Austin and Chris Bay. Just a terrific match. Everybody was hitting their moves. Everybody was on point. And this one was from the 28th. This one was the match here on the 28th. Good stuff. Austin and Bay are fun to watch, and the crowd does take them seriously because Austin made such a good impression at Super Juniors. Chris Bay is doing his part of it. The team so far is a little bit more about Austin than about Bay, but Bay has been Bay's been shining, I think. So again, it's this one's worth going out of your way to see.
So Austin and Chris Bay have been doing really great work in Impact, probably for 9 months now, like just working together, doing their thing. And shout out to the Break for Impact guys, Mike Gilbert and JD Oliva, who usually cover these guys in their beat. Right. But when they come into New Japan, it doesn't even feel like they're upping their game. Like it feels like a day at the office with the way that they wrestle and they hang at that level. Like their caliber and pedigree is just that good. They are a lot of fun, and the fact that they booked them to dispatch House of Torture, just those two on their own, should tell you all you need to know about how important New Japan considers their contribution to Bullet Club.
All right, there you have it. And then there's another one that I wanted to mention briefly from opening night. It was El Lindemann and Alex Zayne against Kevin Knight and Kushida. There was no taco garbage in that one. There was nothing silly. But Kevin Knight, of course, working very hard to get over. He hasn't been in New Japan before, and he's hitting those incredibly high drop kicks. Zayne and Lindemann were both motivated because it was their first match there in the tournament, trying to show people that they're a good team. And that one I thought really sang. I thought that was just one of those matches in the middle of that card there from the 21st to Cork. And again, it does help that the atmosphere was up. The fans were cheering, and they were allowed to make noise. And this match really kind of sung to me. And Lindemann's a really talented guy. And I like Zayne a little better than you do. I think he's still pretty good. But they hadn't done all the Taco Bell crap at that point. So that one I think is worth time there. So go out of your way to see that one.
Yeah, I will correct what I'm saying. I don't think Zayne is bad, but when they go to the point of so much comedy, I don't think that they have a shot of winning this tournament. And when they don't have a shot of winning the tournament, I am less invested in what they're contributing to the tournament up to that point. And it's just a weird metric thing because I'm watching so many matches and I'm paying attention to the stuff that matters, that if I have to shunt something off to the side because it's just a match in the tournament and its purpose is more incidental than it is consequential, I have to pay attention to the stuff personally that is the bigger picture things that are going to pay off in the long run. A lot of the things that Lindemann and Zayne are doing in this doesn't feel like it's going to pay off in the long run, even if I feel like Lindemann deserves better in this tournament because of the sheer talent, and I want to see more from Zayne that's in a different vein than this.
Okay. Any other matches from the junior tournament that you really enjoyed?
Let's see. Did we talk about?
I have one more if you don't there, but yeah, that's where I was going right here. And these are the two best teams in the tournament for me.
Good.
and this is just wonderful. They really work together well. Of course, they've worked with each other quite a bit. The entire previous tour leading up to Autumn Attack was Teton and Bushi clashing with TJP and Akira in multi-person tag matches leading up to the tag title match, which of course United Empire retained. I feel like we're going to be seeing this match for a long time if Teton stays with the company. And this is one of those rivalries that's really starting to feel like it has some nice flow to it. And they're getting to the point now where they are starting to take it to the next step with which hit their big moves on one another. Now starting to counter those big moves. You're starting to see counters to the counters as these two teams kind of figure out ways to keep this matchup fresh. And this was an excellent example of it. A terrific match. And this one, again, from that one was from the 25th, and it was the main event on that show, of course. And just a dynamite tag team match between four guys who know how to work together. Definitely fast pace. And you got to have your cardio up if you're going to work this tournament. These four certainly do. Go check this one out.
I look at these 4 people and I kind of laugh to realize Francisco Akira is the rookie of the squad in these 4. The
Doesn't
rest of
seem
these
like
guys, have been doing this for so long, and he's just hanging.
Yeah.
When you come into New Japan and you are thrown in to the deep end with the rest of these guys, you either sink or swim. And I don't remember the last couple of guys that have sunk. Like, the people that they choose to come over here, like, they can hang. Like Akira, yes, Zayne can hang. Clark Connors can hang. They may not be having the matches that you want to see or participating in angles or doing things that you want to, but you cannot argue that these are not talents that could probably go do any match that is booked of them at any given time in a New Japan ring.
So we have some good wrestling out there. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more as it goes on. And one thing I wanted to mention is you mentioned the Taguchi and Clark Connors earlier and involved in that match with Zayne and Lindemann with the taco, but I don't know that this tournament is hurting Clark Connors, because I think if we just move on from this whole thing and never mind it and put Connors back in the spot where he belongs, where he should be kind of building up for future contendership, maybe for the junior title, I think we'll be fine. But I don't think this tournament has helped him. Teaming with Taguchi used to be a mixed bag. You used to do a little bit of comedy, but then you'd have good matches. Taguchi's kind of getting to the point where he doesn't do the good match part anymore. So, he and Master Wato had some juice as a team, and they did all right there. Really, the entire point of that team was so that Taguchi could become the 69th tag team champion, because he was the 69th junior heavyweight champion, and he made it part of his gimmick. And, but oh boy, this team with Taguchi and Connors feels like it's dragging Connors down. He's doing goofy shit, like coming out with this. He has this Western thing again, where he's coming out with the cowboy hats. That's fine. But he's coming out with cans of Sapporo, which is the beer that sponsors New Japan. So, we're all in favor of corporate synergy on that one. I understand why it's happening, but I don't know if Clark Connors is being helped by doing mostly comedy matches at this point, which is all, he's a little bit in that Tanahashi spot in the other tournament. You team with Yano, there's a very low ceiling as to how good your match is going to be. And now that Taguchi doesn't turn on the jets anymore and just have a good match like he used to. And I don't know if that's age or he just doesn't care to anymore. But I just see Connors is going out and just being goofy. And sometimes Connors rallies and pins the guy, and sometimes he doesn't. And Taguchi usually takes the loss. So they're kind of protecting Connors, but they certainly aren't boosting him with this tournament. I think this is kind of a placeholder for Clark. And I feel like if you're going to do that, couldn't you just have someone else in there doing goofy comedy?
I feel like Connors is just a guy in this tournament.
And he wasn't a couple months ago.
But we need to like do a what if scenario here. Yeah. So what if Kushida never gets hand, foot, and mouth disease? Okay. So if Kushida never gets that, he goes into the 4-way. That leaves Wato back with Taguchi into this tournament instead of Wato into the tournament. I would have guessed that it would have been Clark Connors and Kevin Knight together as a New Japan Dojo team, probably the same amount of success. But because they had to pivot Wato over there, they moved Connors to Taguchi, which is an East-West comedy team at best, doing the fun gimmick. But it definitely has that vibe of like slapdash, put it all together, because the plans changed elsewhere. Would it have been better to put Kushida and Taguchi together in a tag? Maybe. But does that make sense? I don't know.
Do we need Taguchi? Do we need Taguchi in this tournament, or can we have somebody that's going to have good matches?
I think I needed somebody to eat some losses. So I think this is all just an unfortunate series of events born out of babies not being able to keep their foot out of their mouths. But sometimes that's just the way the world works, man.
Well, you're right about that, and that is something that we're dealing with here. So, as we move on, there's one other thing of note, and it's in the heavyweight area here. Now, as these shows have gone on, there have been a couple that have been nothing but tournament matches, and it's funny that those shows are actually haven't been as good as the other ones because everything is like 5 minutes, 8 minutes, like 7 minute matches in these tournaments because they have to get through 10 of them. And then the other nights, though, there has been something going on with Suzuki-gun and Los Ingobernables who aren't involved in tournament matches that night. That's how they're doing this. And it's really just kind of a circus to get Shingo Takagi and Taichi back in the ring. And what they're having are these wild matches that don't last very long. They're only about 5 to 10. They're under 10 minutes almost always. And they either end in double countouts, someone slipping in at the 19 count and getting a count out, or someone getting a flash pin once they're back inside the ring from teasing a double count out. And we knew that this was going to involve the new King of Pro Wrestling trophy. They're going to go. He's built a new trophy. I don't know if you've seen this, Jeremy, but it basically looks like a little bit of a broomstick handle stuck on the bottom of that poor thing that's been destroyed over the course of the year.
It's no longer a necklace.
It's no longer a necklace. No,
okay.
he's.
I kind of like a necklace.
I think he went on YouTube and saw some woodworking videos and put something together on that. I don't get the idea that Shingo's out there with a lathe kind of doing intricate work here. This was pretty slapdash, but he put something together for his trophy, and they're going to have a match, and it's going to be at the Taichi promoted show. It's not going to be on a New Japan show, which is interesting. And so they have their stipulations, Jeremy, and here they are. We're going to go through them here. So these guys have been brawling them back and forth all the time, and it always ends with shouting back and forth. So now we have this. So Taichi wanted to incorporate all of these counts. So in these things, there's the referee counts when you're choking somebody. The referee counts when you're outside the ring. Of course, there's the 1, 2, 3 that we're all familiar with. How to incorporate that? Well, Taichi wants a match. There's a 30-minute match, just flat out 30 minutes. So a bit of an Iron Man rules on that. It's going to go 30 minutes, but each referee count, and that includes when a guy's thrown out of a ring and he's counted out, rope breaks, when you don't break the hold right away, chokes, pinfall attempts, all of that stuff go to a score, and the most points you can tally up in 30 minutes wins. That's Taichi's stipulation. Shingo Takagi wants a lumberjack Texas death match. So Texas death, in that you get the fall, and then you got a 10 count to get back up with lumberjacks around the ring. So you're seeing ways that after doing all these countouts, teased countouts, brawling all over the building, the referee's count has been key in all of these build-up matches. So Taichi wants to make that part of scoring points. And then Shingo wants to do the whole thing where if you fight too much outside the ring, they do the old Southern wrestling style where now we have to have a lumberjack match where if somebody spills to the outside, you throw them back in. So they can't just brawl around ringside and get counted out all willy-nilly. We're going to have a finish, by God. So that's going to be coming up at the Taichi show. Which one of these stipulations do you think should be the one? Do you care? Maybe I should have started with do you care?
Taichi. I think I'm going to go with the Taichi match.
It's at least creative, right?
Yeah, I feel like you can go in different routes. The Shingo match just reminds me of Kurt Angle doing weird stuff in last man standing matches in WWE, where not only are you getting the pin, but you're just like you're dumping more and more like garbage and debris on somebody, and I don't care. Yeah. Like I care, but I don't. Like I don't know if I'm going to go out of my way. If it's not on New Japan World, like I'm not spending $27 like I did the historic New Japan to watch this. No, I will. Yeah.
I don't think it's $30, but it is an add-on. It's those Taichi Mania shows are a bit of an add-on to that. I think it's like equivalent of around $10 or something like that, if I remember correctly.
They got me on the Rumble on 44th. They got me on that. They got me on the They got me on historic. I'm gonna politely demur and I will let one of the other fantastic shows that talk about New Japan generously cover that show for us.
It is a mixed bag with the King of Pro Wrestling thing and Shingo Takagi because his feud with Taichi has actually been fairly good for it. They've had some creative matches. They've done some interesting things, like the counts 1, 2, 3, 2 counts, and all those accumulating until you get a certain score. I like some of that. We haven't seen it before.
The fantastic good. Like the Phantasmo matches were fine.
They were just okay though. I was disappointed with the Phantasmo feud because they got too into that street fight crap. And here's my thing with the street fights. Those are two great wrestlers, ELP and Shingo. Just let them wrestle each other. Find a way for them to wrestle each other. We watch guys on, God knows, AEW and WWE do this bullcrap every freaking week where people are diving off of ladders, through tables, hitting each other with those aluminum trash can lids that only exist in the world of pro wrestling anymore. And it's tired. And we had Shingo and ELP, who are capable of having great wrestling matches, bogged down by this repetitive stuff that we see constantly. This, at least, it gets away from that, and it's a creative concept between two guys that can actually, it'll give them a chance to actually wrestle and use the stipulation.
So a King of Pro Wrestling match to me is this. It is not something that I go out of my way to look forward to. It is not something that is going to compel me to get a show. But if it is on a show and the match is fine. Like it's part of the variety show. It's part of the act. You throw it in there. It's a change of pace. I'm looking forward to Shingo getting back to doing a few more serious things. But there's a lot of people at the top of the card at New Japan right now. There's a lot of people. And he got his opportunity when a lot of those people weren't able to be there. They're there now, and it might be a little while before we see Shingo back at top level.
Toru Yano had basically a year and a half with the King of Pro Wrestling thing. He dominated it the first year and then won it again because, of course, this is a title. Let's just recap this. This championship or whatever it is, it's this title, I guess. It's resets at Wrestle Kingdom every year. So no matter who the champion is going in, it just goes up for grabs again. And there's the King of Pro Wrestling Rambo there to determine who the new one is. And then that person defends the title in these strange stipulation matches the rest of the year. So who do you think Shingo is still part of it, like in 2023, or do they move on to someone else? And I'm going over that roster, and unless they do something with House of Torture again, I just feel like there's a comeback in House of Torture, or just because they're just decimating them right now. Would this be something for Evil going forward, perhaps, who doesn't really have a path to Wrestle Kingdom and might be in that Rambo? Like I'm trying to figure out what they do with it. I'm kind of hoping it gets away from Shingo Takagi, just so Shingo can go back after one of the big titles because he's such a great wrestler.
So I need a little bit of clarification on here.
Okay.
The King of Pro Wrestling title, if he loses it to Taichi before Wrestle Kingdom, does that make Taichi the whole 2022 King of Pro Wrestling?
I think that's how it works. Like he's the 2022 champion.
Like he gets 1 month, but he considered. So like, I don't know if I care. Like, you know, and I don't mean that to be like you could have of one, half a dozen of the other. Like if Shingo lost this award, this distinction at any given time, it's not going to affect him.
Well, no, I think you're right. So after Taichi Mania, one of these guys is going to be the champion of the thing. It really doesn't matter which one. I agree with you on that. But then the title goes back up for grabs at Wrestle Kingdom and into that Rambo. And I'm just wondering, do you keep, because they did 2 years at Wrestle Kingdom with Yano, and then they moved it to Takagi about halfway through year 2 with Yano. So he was about 18 months. He was wrapped up with the King of Pro Wrestling thing. And I just wonder if Takagi is going to still be, if they're going to book Takagi to go back after it, or if they're going to let Takagi do something else and have someone else do it. If so, who?
I think it'd be too cute to move on from Takagi with a month to go before the 2023. You know, if you were going to do that, you should have done it before. And it's not even a New Japan show.
Yeah, I would like to see at Wrestle Kingdom somebody else win the thing going into 2023 and let Shingo go off and do his own thing. So it doesn't matter whether he carries it to Wrestle Kingdom as long as someone else at Wrestle Kingdom takes the thing and
it's
moves
just
it
time
away
for a
from
fresh
time
chapter.
for somebody else.
Turn the page.
Let's see some wrestling matches from Shingo Takagi again and not the street fights. So All right. With that, now, of course, we have the tournaments. Let's bring this up here. This is a nice little graphic that'll show you what's going on with the junior heavyweight thing right there. And so that'll be going on more this week. We'll have more heavyweight tournament matches this week. There are a few things still to look forward to on here. Some real good matchups that are coming. And then we'll see if the haves and have-nots continues in the junior heavyweight division. And then for the heavyweights, we have that. And, again, it's a thing where is Aussie Open going to run the table? Of course not. Someone's going to beat them, right? It's going to be interesting to see who. And if so, who does end up in the finals on this one? We've really I feel strongly that we've got it narrowed down to 3 possible teams. And I feel like that LIJ rally is going to come on strong here very quickly. And I think it's going to start pretty soon. They're going to start winning some matches. You think so?
Yeah, I kind of have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What else is Naito? They're not going to have a Tokyo Dome show without Tetsuya Naito in at least a decent spot. It's just not going to happen. They need to sell these tickets. He's one of their biggest stars to this day. And this is his path, right? Unless they could always do something where someone just appears on the video screen and challenges him, because they've done that before a couple weeks ago, where it doesn't have to have this long-term big-time story. But I feel like this is the path, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, I asked my buddy Dave the other day, like, what he thought. And I came away feeling like it was going to be Naito and Kanata at Wrestle Kingdom. Like, you talk to somebody and you like talk it out for a second. You're just like, yeah, that's starting to get the vibe that I'm thinking. There's always a possibility that it could be a number of teams, like a 3-way or a 4-way. Like, you could throw Goto, Hashi, Mark Davis and Kyle Fletcher and Naito and Kanata in there with FTR and do like a 4-way. I feel like that would probably dilute the value of the title match. But at the same time, when you have a non-contracted talent holding a title for the company, sometimes there's politics at play to make somebody look strong or not look weak, or, you know what I mean? And I think FTR didn't even pin Ocon and Cobb for the titles at Forbidden Door.
No, I don't think they did either.
I think they got Romero on that one.
Yeah.
And so the more things change, the more they stay the same. So if it happened that they won the titles that way, what's to say that they don't lose the titles in the same fashion?
Yeah, it could be something like that. So, I mean, it's Wrestle Kingdom's one of those shows where they come up with a lot of multi-man matches to try to get everybody on the card too. So there's definitely a history of things like that there. In fact, I mean, the junior tag team titles used to be in a 4-way almost every single year, a four corners match. It would lead off the show and just be kind of this high energy opening. So they could always do that with heavyweight titles. We're going to get that with the junior singles championship, a 4-way match. So they could do another one. That could always work. So with that in mind, I wanted to mention a couple of things here, Jeremy, before we sign off. We got a little bit of history here I wanted to bring in about the tag team tournament. Now, in New Japan, the tag team tournament has never really been the number one tournament. I'm bringing up my notes here, which is why I'm looking off to the side, because I just want to make sure I have some of these. Now, All Japan Pro Wrestling has had a tag team tournament that goes way back, and it's always been one of their biggest events of the year, and to the point that it's almost on par with their Champion Carnival tournament, the singles tournament. That's never really been the case in New Japan. It's always been about that singles thing. This is more of a singles company than All Japan was. But they did start running a tag team tournament in 1980. There wasn't one in the 70s, not any kind of consistent one. So they started in 1980, and they did use some of the very top people. Now, this was the era when they were working with the WWF. And the first one was called the Madison Square Garden League in 1980. So that was back when the Madison Square Garden League was the name of the singles tournament too. So it was always toward the end of the year. So this is the time of year for it. And that hasn't really changed. It's always been like a November, December type of thing. Mm-hmm. And the very first one I mentioned, 1980, there were some very interesting names in it. They used most of their top foreign names, and they used their top guys. So it was always portrayed as something important, and it was the headline of that tour. But what you had was, in the end, Antonio Inoki teamed with WWF champion Bob Backlund in the very first tournament. So Backlund came over from the WWF and ran the whole tour, and they went through and scored the most points. Now, the scoring system is a little vague here, Jeremy. Not going to lie. This is a tournament with 10 teams. So you had 9 matches. It was round robin. Antonio Inoki and Bob Backlund finished with 34 points. I'm assuming there's a system, but it was not made apparent.
Like a 40-point must system or what?
I don't know. I honestly don't know how they decided all that. But Stan Hansen and Hulk Hogan was the team that finished second in that one with 32 points. So those are the 2 teams that went on to the finals. Andre the Giant teamed up with a Canadian wrestler named the Hangman. This was a guy that actually did get a WWF run in late 1980, early 1981, the Hangman. So he teamed with Andre the Giant. It was always kind of a heel in Japan. And the Hangman was a heel who got a run at Backlund and Pedro Morales, who was the Intercontinental Champion. You had Tiger-Jeet Singh was in this thing with Yamanosuke Ueda, who was always a chaos demon of his own. He was one of those guys who would brawl around throughout the arena. So Tiger-Jeet Singh, perfect partner for him. Strong Kobayashi and Seiji Sakaguchi. That's the all New Japan good guy team. Fujinami and Kengo Kimura also in there. We also had William Ruska from Eastern Europe, and Bad News Alan Koaj from was a judo player for the United States in the Olympics in there. Kentaro Hoshino and Ricky Choshu, and then Ox Baker and Johnny Powers. We mentioned Johnny Powers as part of the NWF title that Antonio Inoki brought in to be a singles title. Johnny Powers was the guy that dropped the title to Inoki after working mostly in Ohio and Buffalo. So all the way into 1980, those were the guys. So Inoki and Backlund defeated Hansen and Hogan in the finals there. So, I mean, Antonio Inoki, the world champion from the WWF, Hulk Hogan, who is still pretty new. I mean, this is late 1980. We're only a few months after he and Andre the Giant had their Shea Stadium match. So pretty new for Hulk Hogan to be in that kind of position, but you could see that New Japan already had big plans for him. And then Stan Hansen was still one of the top foreign heels for New Japan at the time. And he was very, very close to making his historic jump. In fact, 1981, he teamed with Dick Murdoch and finished third with 8 points in that tournament. And then in a move that shocked everybody, but it actually been worked out months earlier, unbeknownst to Antonio Inoki, but knownst to Shohei Baba in All Japan, that Stan Hansen was going to jump. So Hansen filled out his obligation and worked the tag team tournament for New Japan. And then in a shock moment, walked out with Bruiser Brody and Jimmy Snuka at the All Japan tournament finals when they wrestled the Funks. So this move that just a tiny little bit ago, maybe even a night or two before, Stan Hansen was in a prime foreign heel spot for New Japan, then shows up on an All Japan show cornering Bruiser Brody and Jimmy Snuka. So that was a big moment in the All Japan, New Japan rivalry. You can chalk one up for Baba in that one. 1981, Andre the Giant teamed with Rene Goulet and won the tournament by scoring 10 points. And again, we're back to some sort of normal scoring. They had 10 points in this tournament. Antonio Inoki and Fujinami, the All Japan heroes, finished second with 8, along with Hansen and Murdoch. I mentioned at 8 points. So Inoki and Fujinami defeated Hansen and Murdoch by countout in the semifinal. So those two teams had to square off for the right to face Andre and Goulet. So, of course, you could get the bit of an out for the hometown heroes of Inoki and Fujinami. They had already wrestled a big match. Then they had to wrestle Andre the Giant. So when Andre and Goulet won, protected the hometown guys. Something I thought was interesting here, Pat Patterson was on this tour. He teamed with Bad News Allen, but only scored 2 points. Killer Khan and Tiger Taguchi scored 6. And then Afa and Sika, the legendary Wild Samoans tag team, 2 points. No love for Afa and Sika in this tournament. Who would have thought of that, right? And this was in the time when they were starting to headline for just about every territory they touched in the United States. But New Japan, I guess, weren't so sure about them.
Sounds like the bloodline wasn't potent yet.
Not yet. Yeah, no, you never see that now. I mean, the goodness. Now, 1982 comes up. Now Hogan is a babyface in New Japan, and he is because he just got over so good. This is one of those things where a guy turned himself babyface, not necessarily in any of the plans. Just Hogan had that charisma. The people in Japan took to him, and Antonio Inoki said, "Well, I'm going to hook onto this wagon here." So they teamed together in 1981. So Hogan's a babyface teaming with Taguchi, and lo and behold, they won the tournament. But this was another one here. They won it against Killer Khan and Tiger Taguchi in the finals. So that was another win for Inoki with a different partner there. Andre the Giant, Rene Goulet were in the tournament, but didn't win it. He also had guys like Adrian Adonis and Dino Bravo. So that was would have been a pretty good team. And a Mexican team was there, El Canek and Pero Aguayo. And this is kind of how it went for a while. You would have Inoki teaming with a big guy, Andre teaming with someone, and then Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch, the North-South connection that became WWF World Tag Team Champions, became regulars in this time as a team with New Japan. So in 1983, Inoki and Hogan won again from beating Adonis and Murdoch in the finals. 1984, it was Inoki and Fujinami over Adonis and Murdoch in the finals. So you started to see these teams that were consistently at or near the top and facing off in the big shows there. And, of course, Adonis and Murdoch, both brilliant workers. And imagine those matches with Inoki and Fujinami, if you can find them out there. Terrific stuff. I mean, those are four really, really class guys. So the matches were terrific. And this tournament was really starting to gain a little bit of momentum. So, in 1985, let's create the tag team titles. And for the first time, it wasn't the Madison Square Garden League. It was the IWGP Tag League. And in 1985, they crowned the first IWGP Tag Team Champions coming out of this tournament. Similar to what they did in the IWGP Singles Tournament, where they just said, okay, now we're going to have a champion. So the winners of this tournament became, instead of just getting the trophy, they became the defending tag team champions of New Japan. Things did not go smoothly. Here's what happened here. I mentioned all that with Stan Hansen before for a reason, not just because he was teaming with Hulk Hogan. So stick with me on that. I mentioned that the team that Hansen walked out with on the All Japan Tag Team Finals was Jimmy Snuka and Bruiser Brody, right? 1985, Snuka and Brody are in New Japan now. They've made the jump over to Inoki. So they got this big push in the first IWGP Tag League to crown the first champions. They scored the highest number of points in the tournament. They got 29 points. Tatsumi Fujinami and Kengo Kimura had 23. Antonio Inoki and Seiji Sakaguchi, his longtime right-hand man, 21. Dick Murdoch and the Masked Superstar in this one now. No Adrian Adonis, but Masked Superstar, also known as Bill Eadie, also known as one half of Demolition, 19 points. Hacksaw Higgins and Nor the Barbarian, El Canek and Dos Caras, two legends in Mexico. And the Kelly twins from Central States Wrestling, who scored no points. So those were the equivalent of the Young Boys. So Bruiser Brody and Jimmy Snuka, they had the most points. They're in the finals, right, Jeremy?
Probably not, with the way that you asked that question.
So Bruiser Brodied his way into a situation where he determined that Antonio Inoki wasn't giving him his due in some form or fashion. There have been various different stories about this. Either the money was wrong, or he didn't feel like the push was going to be right, or something was going wrong. So tag team finals. Time to crown the new IWGP Tag Team Champions. Fujinami and Kimura show up. No Brody, no Snuka. Brody convinced Jimmy Snuka, not always the sharpest knife in the drawer, Jimmy, to get on a train and leave and jump to All Japan before getting paid for the tour. You got paid for the tour at the end. They worked the entire tour except the finals and jumped instead of taking any money. So and Brody, Brody just left, just said, whatever's going on, I don't like it, I'm out. And Snuka went with him. And so neither one of them got their money for that tour, which was not insubstantial. I mean, I think Brody was getting around like 10 grand a week in the mid 80s.
I don't know what to say to that.
Brody learned early on the best way to take care of yourself is just like screw the promoter before he screws you, right? And
yeah,
there were plenty of promoters who would do things like that. There's no question about it. And then he ran into Shohei Baba in Japan, who always worked on a handshake agreement. Everyone that ever worked with him said that a handshake from Baba is worth more than a contract from anyone else, right? I don't know. The same was not said for Antonio Inoki. It was not. I don't know if his instincts from his early days of working with American carny promoters just kicked in and he just said, these guys are going to screw me and I'm out and I'm just leaving or whatever it was. But Brody left him high and dry. And so the first tag team title was contested between the second and third place teams, Fujinami and Kengo Kimura, Antonio Inoki and Seiji Sakaguchi. So Fujinami and Kimura became the first IWGP Tag Team Champions. We don't know for sure 100% if Brody and Snuka were supposed to win those titles or not, but we never found out. We never got the chance to find out because Brody and Snuka hightailed it back to All Japan, who were happy to have them and became, so all that stuff with Hansen and the jumps and things, like Brody and Snuka are in the middle of a lot of the stuff.
Is it low-hanging fruit to observe that Jimmy Snuka is known to make impetuous, life-changing decisions without a second thought, in which he is dogged for making said decisions?
There's
at multiple points in his life.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is 1985, so it's after the whole Argentina Nancy thing, where quite frankly,
oh yeah, the where he murdered
he killed his girlfriend.
Yes.
So Snuka has been described as a basket case, and I wouldn't disagree. So this is probably a very impressionable, dangerous person, and but he got on the train with Brody, and that was it. He didn't show up. They didn't show up for the final.
Fuck around and find out, I suppose.
I guess so. So, but Brody was a better fit for All Japan anyway. Really, he just was. And Snuka was kind of on the decline in his career. Remember, 1985, he was one of the most popular people in the WWF. WWF didn't even trust him to give him a match at WrestleMania. He did.
The more stories I hear about Brody, the more it's just like, I gotta respect the dude. Like, you may not like him, but he did what he needed. He looked out for himself, and he backed it up.
He did. So with that in mind, going over here, they changed the name of the tournament now that they had champions to the Japan Cup Tag Team Tournament. It ran in 1986 and 1987. Inoki and Yoshiaki Fujiwara won. That was Inoki's 5th win in 7 tournaments. So once again, it pays to book yourself when you're the owner. And in 1987, it was Fujinami and Kengo Kimura. That team actually picked up its 2nd win in 1987, and then the tournament went away for a few years. They didn't have one until 1991. When it came back in 1991, it became an annual event again. We'll go over that in a future episode. Well, as for who some of the dominant teams were in the very early days in the tournament has happened every year since 1991, and so we'll go into that very soon. But that were the early days, the controversial and full of turmoil days of the heavyweight tag team tournament in New Japan. So we'll have more on that going forward, but those were some sweaty palms, I'd imagine, that day as the show time drew near and Antonio Inoki was looking around for his finalists, the people that drew the house, or probably drew half the house anyway, or were the part of that main event.
Where did they go?
They ain't coming, are they? Can you imagine? I wonder what time you sit there and you look at the clock and you just think, okay, they're late.
They're not coming.
And then where does it turn into? They're not coming at all, are they?
Ugh, 2 hours before showtime.
What a sinking feeling of one of your biggest shows of the year to crown your tag team champions. That was probably not a day to be on Inoki's bad side.
Not much to say to that, man. I don't like when people don't show up for parties they're invited to.
Yeah, how about that? And didn't get their money. Didn't get their money. What an intense. I also would have liked to have heard the conversation between Brody and Snuka. I want to hear how Brody talked him onto that train. No. Don't take your 20 grand or however much it was. Follow me. And Snuka just goes, okay,
you'll make twice as much in all Japan.
Oh, God. Boy, what a day, huh? So there you have it on that. That's history. Now, we have a lot more shows coming up this week, Jeremy, right? Didn't you say there were like 5, I think, or something like that?
We have 5 shows. I believe that there is a show on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Monday. And they are dual shows, so there are 10 matches of consequence on each show. So I believe that we're going to come at you hot next week with 50 more matches in which we have sifted a handful in which you said, these are the ones that matter. These are the ones that we say, thumbs up, go find it.
This is our promise to you that we will not go through these one by one.
We're going to do the punishment so you don't have to.
That's right. We watch so you don't have to. We'll tell you which ones. So we'll filter it all out for you, show you the trends, see what's shaping up, and any other announcements, because we're getting into that time of year where we start to have little things come out about Wrestle Kingdom and all that. So we're going to cover any of that comes out. So with that in mind, Jeremy, anything else from you that you want to add before we wrap up?
You can find me at Jer Finestone. Click and subscribe to the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. That's free. $5 Patreon. That's not free. It's a cup of coffee. But you get a number of audio podcasts that you would not have access to otherwise from luminaries such as Paul Fontaine, Garrett Gonzalez, John LaRocca, sometimes Dave Meltzer, sometimes we show up on podcasts that are pay for sometimes.
And you're going to be on the wrap this week, aren't you?
I'm going to be on the wrap. I'm going to be talking about WWE. I've not watched any WWE. It is Tuesday afternoon. I don't know what happened on Raw last night. You know why? Strong Style comes first.
That's exactly right. And it's going to be the case. We're going to be watching a lot of wrestling for you, and we will be right back here next week to tell you all about it. So my social is right there. You can see it at Stephen Conway 88. My history website is ringsidereplay.com. And with that, we're going to wrap things up for this week. Thank you for watching Speaking of Strong Style. I'm Stephen Conway. He's Jeremy Finestone. We appreciate your time, and we will be back with you very soon again. Thanks.